if you guys out there have ever had like a horrible first date, hearing these, I think will make you feel a little bit better.
Lily was a supposed 22-year-old woman, with me being a 24-year-old guy at the time. I drove by her place to pick her up at night, so I never saw her until she was actually in my car. First, Lily informed me she preferred to be called by her demon name, Lilith. Lilith was 50% demon, 40% vampire, 5% werewolf, 3% human, and 2% other. She was also super tiny, like under 100 pounds. And instead of being 22, she just had her birthday last week, and she turned 17. Also was super pregnant, 7 months along, which made her belly even bigger than the rest of her body. Oh, and this was child number 3. Welcome back to the Medicine Podcast. This is your co-host, Mr. Nicolas Cage.
What?
Alongside my beautiful, blue-eyed partner with incredible white headphones, Mimi.
White headphones. I thought you were going to say white teeth.
And teeth as well.
Nicolas Cage. Wow.
Nikki.
You're taking on a whole different identity today, huh?
I don't know. We'll see.
Well, one of the things that we're up here at Priest Lake. I'm so distracted by the fact that you introduce yourself as Nikki Cage.
Maybe that'll be a new thing. Maybe I'll just introduce myself as somebody new every week.
It's in fact
Keep it spicy.
What if this is the person's first time listening?
Then they'll be pleasantly surprised as to how significantly handsome Nicolas Cage has become.
And younger.
True.
Okay, so we're up here at Priest Lake. It's amazing. It's our heaven. And one of the things that I love most about this place is the immersion into nature. It's just everywhere. We're literally like basically living on the water. 10 steps away from the water, there's a slew of different animals around.
Wildlife.
All the time. Wildlife, yeah. And every year there seems to be a dominant animal that is coming through that is like, just like last year, there were 10 bunnies on the yard every single morning, which is not normal. Usually there's like 1 or 2. So it was like the year of the bunny. Well, this year, it's the year of the bald eagle. And we've been seeing bald eagles every single day, morning, noon, and night, in the evening, fishing and just soaring above us, circling like... It's very rare to see. You might see one bald eagle a summer, and we've seen one every single day. And so this year is the year of the bald eagle, and I was like, all right, what's the message here? What is what's the totem of the what's the spirit animal of the eagle inviting us, flirting with us? What message does it have for us?
Well, and I've had a bald eagle as a spirit animal or power animal for me. For years. And I actually, we've done these power animal facilitated workshops through Paul Check and his wife, Angie. And there's a shamanistic tradition of being able to connect to particular animals. And, a bald eagle has been a infrequent guest in my life, but relatively consistent over the years as I've seen it multiple times up here in North Idaho. And had a really beautiful connection to this animal through multiple sessions. In the shamanic domain and usually have a name for the freaking bald eagle when it appears to me. Its name is Pan.
I love it.
And so I've always had a really beautiful connection with the BE.
The BE, yes. So I looked up the message, like what is the meaning of the spirit animal bald eagle, and really what shone through right now was power, vitality, balance, and big picture.
Yeah.
And so I'll just read this little nugget here. So it says, eagles symbolize power and vitality. They can represent the balance between heaven and earth as they raise their wings to the heavens while keeping an eye on the ground. This can encourage people to balance their need for freedom with their earthly responsibilities. That's something that we talk about all the time. How many times have we said we have one foot on the ground and one foot up in the ether, in the heavens, in the woo, in the spiritual realm. Like, we consider ourselves like sort of like a bridge for people that are like wondering, like, I wonder what else is out there. Like, we're still approachable. And so we're just very aware of this concept of like keeping a foot on the ground and not being so flighty that you are not in touch with reality or your fellow man anymore. So that's a concept that we talk about a lot.
And I love, like, pseudo freedom is just like unplugging from all your obligations.
Yeah.
And having like this fake sense of freedom for like a week.
Right.
Before it comes piling in on you.
Yeah.
Actual freedom is building strategically, intentionally a life that can allow you the experience of not being chained to something.
Yeah. It's praying and moving your feet.
Yeah.
And this is the last little line here. It says, eagles can represent health and wholeness of being and can signify people who rise above the details of daily life to see the bigger picture, which is great. You know, sometimes we can all, but certainly you and I, we can get fixated on the minutia of something. And it's always a good lesson for us to remember to zoom out a little bit, look at the big picture, remember the big picture, and that maybe this one thing doesn't really matter as much as, you know, the significance that I'm putting on it.
For sure. Yeah. Even if it's as simple as realizing that lives are long, they're, you know, roughly 100 years, generations, the timeline that Earth has been around, the universe itself. We get so worried about these minutes and seconds of our day, and impossible, if you live that tunnel visioned, to see or feel any sort of long-term reason and rationale for what you may be going through. And so even on the cusp of us, you know, going through this challenging miscarriage, I think that zoomed out perspective and having gratitude for the plan, the bigger vision, is an important one. So thank you, Pan.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bald Eagle. I hope we see you again today. Or Mrs. Could be Mrs.
Yeah, it could be. Well, this is our newly formatted show that we call the Chase and Mimi Show, or the Mimi and Chase Show. I guess we haven't solidified.
Chase and Mimi flows off the tongue a little better.
And it's a little bit different of a structure than what we usually do in our historical Under the Red Hat episodes, where it's just Mimi and I breaking down a particular topic. Maybe we've done Q&A in the past, and we've done a lot of topics similar to this in the past, but we're now kind of pivoting this into more of a what we like to call a meal. And we've got the entree being some relationship questions and some funny / crazy relationship stories that we'll break down and discuss. Many of these questions, a lot of them are submitted from you all, which thank you very much for participating in the curation of this content. And then others, we get sent crazy questions from Reddit and Quora and these other locations on the internet that may not necessarily be a listener, but is funny or interesting enough, compelling enough to have a conversation about. And then prior to that, we offer some appetizers, and this is kind of a rotating list of segments. They'll be a little bit different probably each time, but we'll do 2 or 3 appetizers, little quick bits. Maybe we'll share a clip from the interwebs, break it down a little bit, or have a good laugh, and then move into the entree, the full meal, before we tie this thing up.
In this little cup, I have my favorite way to enjoy mushy love, which is in combination with cold milk. We drink raw cow's milk, and I put it about 8 ounces of milk in with about a scoop and a half of mushy love. That combination, like the cold version of mushy love, tastes like liquid graham crackers. Like, I shit you not. If you don't know yet what mushy love is, it's our mushroom elixir with 500 milligrams of chaga, which is amazing for gut support. They call it the king of mushrooms. And then 500 milligrams as well of tremella mushroom, which is the beauty mushroom. And she is most known for holding 500 times her weight in water. The more hydrated we are, the more plump and dewy and fresh and young our skin looks.
Plump and dewy.
For Mushy Love, go to getmushylove.com and you can use the code MEDICINE for a nice little discount that we only give to our Medicine podcast listeners. First segment, Shit I've been on lately.
Shit I've been on lately.
Where we share what we are currently obsessed with.
Yeah, and this one actually, this can be anything and everything. It can be a book that we're reading. It can be a dream that we had that we're obsessing over. In this particular case, to no surprise to anybody who understands our show and knows me a little bit, working on sleep. Hey, here we go. Still trying to sleep after all of these years.
Only 34 years of work.
And so many of the listeners know we did some genetic testing at the start of this year and come to find there's a particular gene that is mutated for myself, and it has a byproduct of insomnia, which is like no question, right? I've struggled with sleep my entire life. And it has to do with methylation and the detoxification of cortisol specifically. And I just don't have the raw materials to break cortisol down appropriately such that I can get into a rest and digest state to appropriately fall asleep unless life is conveniently, perfect.
Yeah. Why don't you explain your kind of issue just for people that have never heard, just briefly?
Yeah. So most notably in my adult life, I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, wide awake with not like anxiety. It's just a million to-dos in my head, or I'll be stirring on a particular problem, or I'll be thinking about something obsessively. It can be even like a complex question that I heard on a podcast, and it's nothing stress related, but my overactive brain just picks it apart like none other. It's my superpower in the waking world, but it's also this thing that keeps me from entering restorative, both physically and mentally, emotionally, spiritually, sessions of sleep. And it when bad, it can go months where I'm sleeping, 3 to 4 hours a night. Or what happens is I have to take a sleeping aid, which I really don't like, and then I'm very, very groggy.
Yeah.
So that's been my task and my challenge for most of my adult life. I struggled with sleep as a kid, but it looked a little bit different. All that to say, one of the prescribed supplements after this genetic testing is called TMG, trimethylglycine. And I bought it right away from the recommended brand from the group that we did the genetic testing on, and took it for about 2 months. And, I didn't notice a damn thing, nothing. And I was like, fuck this, just another wasted, attempt at solving this sleep problem. Sure enough, time goes on. We're months and months down the road. The last couple of months for me have been another just brutal session of not being able to sleep. And oddly enough, I'm doing some research on another always important component to my supplement life: fitness, wellness, energy, ATP, metabolism, hormones, electrolytes, and avoiding things like caffeine, but trying to look for other solutions for curating energy within my own body. I come across trimethylglycine again, TMG, and I'm like, what the hell? And I'm actually reading and looking into some trusted sources that suggest TMG may reduce fatigue, support cognitive function, improve muscle performance. It increases the creatine synthesis, boosts protein production, and it helps accelerate the recycling of ATP. So I'm very interested in this. People are noting significantly quicker recovery times, feeling like they're there's better hypertrophy on their body. And then there's also this sleep benefit. And so, if I can just describe a little bit, it's TMG helps synthesize what's called SAMe. It's got a big long name that I'm not going to pronounce, but SAMe is a compound that is essential for producing the neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin specifically, that will be very supportive for the lack of raw materials that one has in order to process your rest and digest state to be able to sleep and stay asleep for longer. And so I'm like, all right, well, this at least has some benefit for my metabolism. I'm going to give this another try and switch brands. So my hypothesis is that this potentially was a brand issue, which is very, very common in the supplement space. I've worked in it for a decade, and you've got to find a good source. And I probably just needed to find the right source.
Yeah.
And it's not even like an overly pretty generic health brand. It's Nature's Way TMG. And I started taking about 2 servings a day, a little bit more than what the recommended serving size is. And sleeping better. It's not perfect, but I'm definitely sleeping better. And so when it comes to shit I've been on lately, highly recommending TMG. We're not affiliated in any way, shape, or form. I just wanted to share a little bit of a breakthrough and a little bit of information for anybody out there. I'm also stacking that with a lot more Sheila J of late. I like to say Sheila Jit because it sounds cooler, but I think it is pronounced Sheila J. And actually completely innovative, completely one of a kind, Organifi, my beautiful baby Organifi.
Your first child.
My first child has produced a Sheila Jit gummy. And Sheila Jit tastes terrible by itself.
Yeah, it's like a smoky tar.
It is. It's a tar substance that is from the Himalayan mountains that's very mineral rich and dense. But Shilajit its health benefits are really seemingly endless. But for men specifically, it's supportive of testosterone. It's really supportive for women as well. So by no means is it just a male supplement.
In the first half of your cycle, BT dubs.
Right. First half of your cycle. There's evidence to suggest that it supports even longevity, supports lower risk of bone loss, reduces inflammation, and then you'll notice a tangible level of energy in addition to being horny. And so I've been kind of stacking the two, and the shit I've been on lately is a kind of metabolism combo, TMG and Sheila J gummies. This is the best product Organifi has made in a long time. If you haven't tried it yet, it's a must. Stop what you're doing and order some Sheila J gummies.
It's one of those products, one of those supplements that you feel like same day.
You'll feel like 2 days later. I assure you.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe
you might wake up with a morning wood the next morning, like raging.
Not me, but
no claims, but morning wood guaranteed. Sheila J, Organifi.com. You can find the Sheila J gummies, and the code MimiFit will always get you a discount.
MIMIFIT gets you 20% off.
All right, that's enough of me talking about supplements. My love, what are you into these days?
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about supplements, but first I'm going to talk about something that all of us have been, to quote Morley Robbins, which I'm going to get into, we've been misled and misfed when it comes to iron and copper. A lot of us might not know a ton about copper. We know that, okay, it's this like kind of bright, shiny metal. And, you don't hear a ton about copper. You hear a lot about iron. You hear a lot about how important iron is, especially for young menstruating women, because obviously we lose blood every month. And so I've been told basically by almost every health practitioner that I can think of in my early life, how important getting your iron is, getting your iron. And even to the point where I used to take iron supplements.
Right.
On my cycle, I would take iron supplements. And this was just a couple years ago. This isn't like, oh, I knew nothing about health, or, oh, I wasn't working with an integrative practitioner. This is across the board. People are being told that they need to take iron supplements. The shit I've been on lately is understanding the reality of what makes iron usable in the body and what Morley Robbins calls mobilized in the body, not stored in tissues, which can become problematic. I'm going to explain that. So Morley Robbins is a nutritional researcher. He used to work in the sort of like mainstream hospital setting, and then basically started accumulating research and digging into the research and figured out that this whole narrative around iron and how a lot of people who are, low in energy might be, they might get their blood taken, and they see that, or their doctor might say like, oh, your iron is low. Your, serum iron is low. You're considered anemic. And so they often are told to take more iron supplements, like I was told, like many other people are told, because we know that iron is critical in red blood cells, carrying oxygen throughout the body, right? Like oxygen is essential. We need this to basically create energy and just to do so many things in the body. We need iron doing its job. The problem is that, and what Morley Robbins found, is he didn't discover this, but he's really the one who's like the whistleblower on this. And what he is really putting out there is that you have to have optimal copper in order for iron to do its job properly. And if you don't have proper levels of copper, then iron gets stored. It gets immobilized and stored in tissues and organs. Well, so what, right? Like what happens? This is basically a process of oxidation in the body. So iron, you can see it like when we go to Sedona, the rock is red because of the iron stores in the earth oxidizing with the air, and it turns red. What color is rust? It's reddish color. That's happening inside of our bodies with this stored iron. It's not a good thing. Iron is good. Stored iron in the body, in the tissues, not good. It promotes all sort of really intense health issues like cardiovascular disease, cancer, even autoimmune issues, obviously fatigue, and just general rapid aging, because literally like our body is rusting. So if you have ever been told that you need iron supplements, I want you to stop what you're doing and go purchase or download the book called Cure Your Fatigue. And this is kind of a play on words, by Morley Robbins. The CU is for copper. So cure, C-U-R-E, your fatigue, because it really comes down to copper. And we've been misled and misfed when it comes to this balancing act. So one of the analogies that he uses to kind of drive this point home is that iron is like the vehicle, right? And we need a vehicle in order to carry things. In this case, the red blood cells carrying oxygen to the rest of the body. So we need the vehicle, but the vehicle's not going to move if we don't have fuel in the tank. The fuel in the tank is copper. And if you don't have enough fuel in the tank, you're not going anywhere. So, and there's some other little pieces in this analogy that I won't get into because it's just too deep for this one little segment. But I am begging you, if you are taking any supplements with copper, stop and read this book. It's not just his opinion, it's his accumulation of hundreds and hundreds of clinical studies on copper and iron balance and metabolism in the body. So if you've ever been told that you're iron deficient, you're not. I'm just going to say that. You're not. And it's more of, rather than a deficiency, it's about a dysregulation. Iron is the most common element. It's the most common metal on Earth. It's the most abundant metal. Our Earth is 35% iron. It's not an iron deficiency, I promise you. And plus, so many of our foods are reinforced, are fortified with iron. You're not missing iron. You're lacking the ability to mobilize iron. And so I just putting that out there. Obviously, this book goes into things much deeper. I'm really grateful that I'm figuring this out now. I've known about the balance of minerals and how important it is, but I'm really going to be a stickler from here on out, like making sure that I am not having excess iron in my body. Well, I mean, newsflash, we all have excess iron in our body. It's about mobilizing it, getting rid of it, and making sure that this balancing act is really fluid and optimized. But I recently, about right when we started working with Kaylee, the registered, she's a women's health dietitian. She actually instructed me to switch prenatals because I was taking one with iron, and she was looking at my HTMA analysis, and she was like, "You don't need iron. We need to get your copper levels optimized." Yeah. So I've known about this, but really this is the shit I've been on lately. So I'll put it in the show notes, the link to this book. Get the physical or listen to the audiobook. I'm listening to the audiobook right now. It is dense, I will say. It is dense with human physiology and biochemistry, but you can handle it.
Well, I think we're going to try to get Dude Guy on the show as
sure.
well, which hopefully he can break it down a little bit better.
And so the supplement that I just want to plug here, I haven't started taking it. It's en route, but it is a copper supplement. It's called Recuperate IQ.
Recuperate.
Recuperate. Nice. Recuperate IQ, and I can put a link to the show notes. as well, but he has a line of mineral supplements that you can check out if you like.
Cool. All right. I love that. Next segment is, hey, a clip of the week. And why are we doing this? One, we consume content often, and many of these folks we've had the fortune of getting to know ourselves or know through somebody, 1 or 2 degrees of separation away. And we thought it would be really cool to open a little spot in our show to promote and plug other amazing content creators who are conscious in trying to help the world out. And we're kicking this off with none other than one of our best buddies on the whole planet, Mark Wooding, the creator of After School. He's got a really fun new video out that we're going to show a few seconds of. And so this is Lao Tzu, The Art of Not Trying by After School.
Those who stand on tiptoes do not stand firmly. Those who rush ahead don't get very far. Those who try to outshine others dim their own light. Taoists have long observed that humans often act in counterproductive ways. We frequently force things only to discover that our efforts backfire. We try to improve the world, but then we observe that altering the natural way causes many new problems. Often, the more we strive for something, the more we seem to drift away from it. We may wish to impress someone we're attracted to, but for some reason, the more we try, the less we succeed. Or we're about to deliver a speech we have rehearsed over 100 times, and even though we know it inside out, we utterly blow it. In such cases, our knowledge and abilities aren't the problem. We know sufficient, we have practiced enough to perform. The problem arrives when we get in our own way. It's the mind that tries too hard to control the situation, to analyze and intellectualize, that salts our game.
The more we strive for something, the more we seem to drift away from it.
Yeah, this concept, I could probably watch this video every month of my life as a good reminder of flow and engaging in action that is in alignment with the natural rhythms of nature, of myself, of not pushing so hard against reality in the pursuit of something that I want to experience.
Totally. When I look back on my life in various different aspects of my life, whether that be my career, our relationship, my athletic endeavors, or my physical well-being, and the times that I would just immediately go to kind of like peak of those lanes of life will always be a flow state. I was in surrender to a greater force that was working through me. The times that I've been over-controlling, over-focused on the grind or the particular outcome have been maybe productive in a short period of time, but have either led to burnout or they've led to a complete miss of the target that I was striving for to begin with. And so this video, which I highly encourage everyone to just watch in completion, it's about 13 minutes with beautiful animation, some animation from Mark that I've never seen before, super original, kind of steps into the conversation around flow. And not necessarily from like the biohacker type of flow that you might hear from like Stephen Cutler or whatever his name is, but rather more of the ancient wisdom of Lao Tzu, who speaks of flow as this, surrender to the process and the nature and the rhythms of nature itself. And, just a beautiful reminder for me and us on the cusp of having been through just a wild last couple months here. We've had multiple moments like we get really hyperbole oftentimes with these self-help related concepts and flow state and surrendering to the process. And I think I can overlook sometimes just the really like basic shit that as far as how it shows up in my life. And where you were even reflecting back as we were talking about this show. And I'm like, what I kind of had to do, we were moving and we had a rental van booked with U-Haul, and ultimately we were not able to get the van that we wanted. And so we would have to go like 2 or 3 sizes up, which was going to be like $2,000 for literally like a 24-hour rental. and I had to sort of step back and release myself from the very specific criteria that I'd given myself and us as far as moving was concerned, and really kind of like step into what is life trying to tell me about this van inconvenience, to come up with other solutions. And we did, and realizing and thinking bigger picture that I've got a Sprinter van available through my company and blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, it ended up being not just a better solution because we saved some money, but it was because it actually flowed more beautifully with the schedule that we actually ended up having to participate in due to some other life circumstances like the miscarriage and the fact that I totaled my car and things like that. And so that's the practical stuff in life. That's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
It's sometimes not as beautiful and as artistic as we think it's going to be when we read the self-help book or we watch the cool video. It's actually like right here in front of our face, and we're looking for this sort of like divine like gust of wind to come through life. It's not that cute sometimes. It's a fucking U-Haul.
Well, I think the most significant example that I can anchor in myself to come back to and remember what it felt like. Because again, we need the reminder sometimes of like, what is flow? What does flow feel like? And the most significant example that I can think of is when you and I got back together. Neither one of us were striving to get back together.
Right.
We didn't even think it was like an option. We were just noticing and observing and being present in our enjoyment of each other's company. And because there was no attachment, there was no expectation, there was, it wasn't really like even an option, like I said, in our mind. And so then once we started to like feel what we were feeling and just be really in the situation, we noticed like, oh damn, this is straight up flow. And this is, I don't want to experience anything else. Like, this is great. And if we can have more of this, this is what I want. And it was so easy. It was so easy to like just welcome it because it wasn't us chasing it.
Yep. Perfectly put.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, After School. What a cool video. Guys, let us know what you think about the video. Definitely follow his channel. And he's pretty engaging as it pertains to comments and stuff. So jump in there.
He's got multi-million followers or subscribers on YouTube for a reason.
Yeah.
Like
for sure.
It is just, it hits your soul.
And then last little appetizer before we get to the entree of relationship questions is I was today years old when I figured out.
Yeah. So I was today years old when I figured out that you can actually, if you don't have $200 to drop on a pair of really nice blue light blocking glasses, you can actually set your phone up in a way where it is using red light. It's got a red light filter like you're looking through red light glasses. So if you tend to use your phone in the evening, do this simple life hack and it could potentially like help your sleep. We all know the benefits of red light glasses or blue. I call them red light glasses. They're blue light blocking glasses.
But they're red.
But they're red because they block the blue light. You can do this for your phone. So I've been doing this in the evening this week and it's really simple. I watched a video to turn this on. And so I was just going to share with people this nice little life hack. If you want to also get this red tint on your phone, it looks really weird. BT dubs.
iPhone.
Yeah, your iPhone.
Yeah.
What?
I just was clarifying that it's an iPhone.
iPhone. If you have an Android, it might not work. But okay, so here's what you do. You go to your settings, then you scroll down a little bit to accessibility. Then up at the top, there's display and text size. Then you go down almost to the very bottom to color filters and you turn that on. Then you pick your color. In this case, you want it to be red. And so then you'll see your whole phone turn red. Some stuff might be hard to navigate, but you'll figure it out. You're smart. And then to disable it in the morning or whatever, you just click the color filters off. And then that's a free 99 hack on blocking blue light at night. We all know the benefits. Like we all should be doing this. And I have been lazy and haven't ordered another set of blue light blocking glasses. So this is my attempt to be a little kinder to myself and my eyeballs in the evening.
Well, I might even do that because I wear blue light blocking glasses, but I put my phone next to my bed. It's the Wi-Fi's off and everything, but if I can't sleep, sometimes I got to put a podcast on and try to fall back asleep.
Yeah.
And the blue light freaking blinds my face. So I might do that actually before I go to bed.
Yeah, I think you should.
Good idea.
Yeah.
All right, coming up, the entree. Here we are, steak with a side of mashed potatoes, a bunch of spicy mayo on top. 3 relationship questions. The first of which, thank you for submitting these questions. This one's from Katie, a listener of the Medicine Podcast. She says, how do you reignite the fire after years of chronic stress that really affected all aspects of life and our relationship? Being present and feeling more connected. What do you think, babe?
Yeah. Well, we have some different thoughts here. I think they're complementary, but this is the question of relationship, of committed partnership. People who are not necessarily fine, and some people are, but there are a lot of us who are not okay with just existing in relationship together, like roommates, or, kind of the generation of our parents where it's like they're loyal AF. They're going to stay together whether they like each other or not. Our generation is a little more like, no, I want something else. I want something deeper. Mm-hmm. And this is the question. How do we keep the spark alive? We've talked about this on the podcast before, but essentially that's what she's asking. And the reason why the spark goes out in the first place is because #life. Like when she says chronic stress, I know this person, and I won't get too, specific, I suppose, but she's dealt with some health challenges. And during COVID, her job was one of the jobs that was just kind of like let go kind of abruptly. So there was a lot of stress going on in her household and making ends meet and things like that. So that was her chronic stress for years. But also like life is an onslaught of stress every day. Like just the modern life, the never-ending to-do lists, just being a modern human comes with everyday stress, which you could call chronic. And that's really extinguishing to any flame, because you have to get into this rhythm, this sometimes we can get into ruts of daily living in our own life, and then certainly with a partner where every day looks kind of the same, and you've lost that playful flirtiness that you had in your early weeks, months, and maybe years of dating, or even like early in, the honeymoon phase of relationship. And so this is not unique to this person. This is all of us. We get the opportunity to learn the tools and techniques to keep that spark alive, or reignite that spark and tend to these flames on a regular basis. So I think for her, it sounds like they probably both have noticed, I doubt it's just completely one-sided, but, assuming that's the case, I would sit down together and have like a legitimate conversation, not just like passing by each other in the kitchen, like, oh, we need to be deeper, we need to be closer, we need to spend more time together. Like, no, whether it's at dinner or coffee on Saturday morning or whatever, like sit down and set a container for this very important conversation, almost like turning over a new leaf. We're saying goodbye to the past of this phase that we went through, this cycle, this season of our life, and we are creating an intention together. And I think when you do that, it really does set a new tone, especially if it's coming from both people. So ask each other, like, what are you both going to do to contribute to a new type of experience? And ask each other, or say to one another, what I would love for us to do together is blank. And it could be completely different for each person. For him, it might be like, yeah, I want to connect sexually more. For her, it might be like, I want to go out on more dates. I want to read this audiobook together. I want to...
Less phone time.
Less phone time. Like, what do you need in order to feel more connected to your partner. I can't tell you that. Chase can't tell you that. Only you know what you need. Our love languages are different than what this couple's are going to be. So what do you need? Think back on when you felt most connected to your partner. What did that look like? What did that feel like? How were you behaving together? Is there some way that you can bring back some of those things, looking at the thing behind the thing? What was the nutrient that was available to you in those moments? Maybe not the exact like picnic that you went on. We have to go on that exact same picnic. No, it was the novelty of a new hike and having an adventure together or something like that. So identify the thing behind the thing and construct a container and a real conversation about specifically what you are both going to do to contribute to a new way of relating. That's like step one for me.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you have a dream? If you don't, or if you did, it's time for a refresh. Mm-hmm. What makes you excited? And then tell yourself it's possible. Because it is. And I think having excitement and a dream that is greater than the inconvenient feelings, the chaotic feelings, or the charged ones that have been very present through this chaotic period. I like that you talked about putting the past and this, chaotic period of their life to rest. Honor it, accept it, know that it will serve its purpose and has served its purpose, but that you are now closing that period once and for all. It's not that you don't need to think about it. It's not that you don't need to reflect or take lessons from it, but that is a prior way of being, and you're ready to step into something new. An independent life is critically important for the dynamic of your relationship. And so if you're able to think about and begin participating in activities, thought processes, groups, communities that fill you up, if for whatever reason that also crosses over with your significant other, which in many cases, like for you and I, we're very similar in a lot of ways, that fitness and wellness and mindfulness tend to be domains that we both share a passion for, and it just so happens to be that we can participate in them together. But even if that's not the case, I still think that is a critical component to having a strong relationship, is a strong and healthy independent life. If you want to be present and feel connected, which is the quote of the question, you have to be present and feel connected with yourself and in your own life. When you bring that person to the dynamic of the relationship, you'll by default be present and connected with each other. It's pretty cool. And so what's your individual dream? What excites you now? Tell yourself it's possible. Step into the space, the container with your partner. Acknowledge the past. Say thank you to the past and close it. And then step into the curation of what excites me now. What is my dream now? And begin taking steps towards that. Those steps should be fun and exciting.
Yeah.
It can be, I want to take a vacation in 9 months. It can be, I want to start having more sex, or I want to get in shape. Excellent. I don't give a shit what the dream is. If it gives you that like, ooh, this is exciting. This is just within, just outside of my reach. Don't put it a mile away. That's out of reach. Like I want to be a, multimillionaire in 3 months. Rather, right outside your fingertips. Hey, I want to save up $10,000 by the end of the year so that we can decide to do something with that 10,000 or put it away or whatever.
Yeah.
Create
a dream together. I think is what you're saying, right?
Yep.
Not necessarily individually. I think we all need an individual dream, of course.
Individual together.
But the dream together will sort of anchor you both to where you have a deeper bond. It's not just about the day-to-day ho-hum getting the to-do list done. There's something bigger than just the individual man and woman or whatever. And so I think just to close this out, leaning into play, adventure, novelty, you will never go wrong. And I think if your life together looks the same every day, day in and day out for the most part, then you're going to feel the stresses of everyday life more than you're going to feel you and him making memories and creating experience and having these really present, beautiful, connected moments. Like lean into play, novelty, and adventure. And it doesn't have to cost a cent. These things can be free 99.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, pray and move your feet. There's a exercise of having the conversation and articulating what you want and then step into it through action. Sometimes action is actually release. You know, for me, I'm action oriented. So sometimes I have too many things going on. So the action for me is to start to actually say no.
Yeah.
Or to in the morning give myself quiet time instead of getting immediately into work or working out. And so it's going to look different for different people, but pray and move your feet. Momentum is really, really powerful. And the first 2 to 3 to 4 times you do something may feel heavier than once you pick up a little bit of speed.
And last thing here, I just looked at her being present and feeling connected. And I thought the fastest and easiest way to do that is eye
I
contact.
was just going to say, put your phone down and look each other in the eyes. When they're talking at dinner, look at them in the eyes. I did this the other night when I was just feeling disconnected because I was tired after a bunch of work and all the bunch of things we were doing. And I was just staring at your eyeballs and like my whole nervous system changes. And I'm way more present in the space and it's actually very calming. It's like your partner's eyeballs are a little medicine shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. All right. I'll read the next one here and I'll let you start. Do you have to be physically attracted to your partner to make things work? What do you think, babe?
Yeah, maybe this is a hot take, but to make things work, sure, you don't need to be physically attracted, but that is called settling. To have a holistically balanced, thriving relationship dynamic that is romantic and abundant, being physically attracted to your partner is a critical component to a kick-ass relationship. Now, here's the cool thing. Love and the magic of love can facilitate physical attraction beyond what you think it is. And when you are in love and when you see beyond the surface level of the skin and you have a cord of love connection to the soul of that other human being, you begin to find physical attraction with every layer of that being. I think this is why people who are in their 70s can have a killer sex life. This is why some of the best sex can be when you're pregnant. You transcend the skin level attractiveness or the youthful appearance when love runs extremely deep. And so dude guy can be bald. You can get wrinkles. Your balls can be at your knees. I mean, these things can be transcended through a deep connection.
Yeah.
All that to say, physical attraction, in my opinion, if you want this type of love, is super important. But I actually think it will be the byproduct of that level of depth. This eros type love that is more than the love of a friend, a family member, or someone who is endearing to you, which can be competent. That can be a competent relationship. It's a scary world out there. When you get that deep, when you get that vulnerable, your heart could be broken.
Yeah.
So it might seem like I don't need some components like physical attraction. But I will tell you that if you want that rock star relationship, I don't think a rock star relationship is actually a good term for that. I don't think they're very good at relationships, rock stars. But if you want that kick-ass, eros depth relationship, physical attraction, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. No, I agree with you mostly. I think that I don't think I could be with a partner that I wasn't physically attracted to. That's me personally. Maybe there's someone out there that like literally doesn't give a shit and they just want like a companion and a friend and all of that. Like, sure, there are outliers. But man, sex and sexual connection, sexual chemistry is like it feels like the blood
Right.
of a relationship. And just, kind of pivoting off of the question that we just answered before, when your relationship gets rocky, when the modern day stresses come in, sometimes even if you are attracted to your partner, like sex sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like sexual connection sounds like a lot of work, even if like, oh, you haven't had sex in a week and I really want to connect, but it sounds like a lot of work. Man, if you are really freaking attracted to your partner, it makes it a lot easier,
right.
To be like, it takes about 5 seconds for me to like shift into like, oh yeah, he's really hot.
My 18-year-old self comes back to slap me in the face.
Right. But I realize it's about so much more than sex. But one thing I do want to differentiate here is she says, do you have to be physically attracted to your partner to make things work? The way that she phrases it makes it seem like she's already in a relationship and has a partner.
Yeah.
But there could be a situation where someone's single and they're listening and they're like, yeah, I'm single and I'm dating and, I've met up with this person and I'm not physically attracted to them at all. But I love all of these other things. I think that's really dangerous. Yes, you can build physical attraction over the years, but if there's literally like no physical attraction whatsoever, I think that is a dangerous road to go down. I'm not saying it has to be the most important. I'm saying it has to exist.
Well, and I think it's a good point to bring up, like hot guys and hot girls can suck in partnership. Totally. And so there may be a little bit of like a repulsion to, smoking hot people.
Yeah. And so it's like, if you're single and looking, I think that you should be physically attracted at least a little bit to the person, which can build over time. If you are already in a relationship, just know that like every person, every body goes through seasons and cycles of like not being or feeling very sexy or attractive. Like you said, like bald, your balls are down to your knees or you get wrinkles or whatever. Women right after they have a kid is probably the time where they feel the least sexy. Like postpartum period, might go days without showering, their body's readjusting, their hormones are, up and down, they might be emotional, they're, now a feeding station for this little baby. Like dude girl might not feel very sexy and you might find yourself like not being like revved up sexually towards that because it's just a season of life that is requiring something bigger than just great sex. So it's like, I think the context of the situation matters in this case. But I think people can understand what we're saying. Like there's nuance here.
Being in a committed relationship that's been on solid ground and you come into this season of life where there is a feeling of not as much physical attraction, you have made this commitment. And so there's a combination of patience, assessing oneself, and then perhaps even if the physical attractiveness deterioration has something to do with like a health challenge or a health conversation, like we all fall off a cliff when we get to our late 20s and 30s, from a metabolic standpoint. If you've never shifted your life into having an exercise routine and a diet consciousness to some degree, that it may just be a conversation that you need to have with your partner as well. So obviously, it isn't grounds to just like dump someone the moment that you get the feeling of being unattracted to them. There's a sequence and a cadence of appropriateness that one should take. And it starts with like self-reflection and a little bit of patience.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. What are some tips I should say the last question was anonymous. So she would like to keep her name anonymous. So thank you for that. Last question coming from Sarah, a loyal listener of the Medicine Podcast. She says, what are some tips for open communication without worrying about upsetting one another? Not getting defensive or taking things too personally, along with not harboring emotions, both ours and others.
You want me to start?
Go for it.
So I'm going to take her question apart a little bit. I understand what she's asking for. She's asking for some healthy communication tips, but I want to address something in the question where she says, some tips for open communication without worrying about upsetting one another. You and I have been together for 17 years, net 14, something like that.
Yep.
Long time. And we have never stopped learning, especially in part 2. We've never stopped learning about how to communicate better to each other. Yes, we have some tools. Yes, we've been to some workshops. Yes, we've done a lot of work on ourselves, and we can, for the most part, communicate really well together. However, we are never done. And so when she says some tips for open communication without worrying about upsetting one another, I don't think that you have a healthy relationship without being aware of how your communication and words may affect your partner. When we're in everyday conversation, but certainly in a charged conversation, if somebody was a fly on the wall, they would see both of us take moments where, the person has said something and we pause and we take a breath and we think for a minute before we say anything out loud. I'm not saying we're always perfect at this. Like I said, we're never done. But by just taking a breath, you are able to remind yourself that there's a bigger picture here. It's not just about winning an argument. It's not about just being right. It's about coming to some level of not necessarily even compromise, but just recognition of what the other person's experience is. And so I don't think we can simply just not worry about sharing our truth and just don't get offended, Chase. I'm going to say what I want. It's my truth. Just don't get offended. I don't think we get to engage that way. Maybe there's some couples that can, but certainly you and I are not one of them. I am always, and I know you are too, I'm always trying to think, and I can always be better, but trying to think how what I'm going to say is going to affect you. So I think with that in mind, there are some helpful tools and tips and kind of phrases that you can put in your arsenal of communication. Some of them being, if you're just starting a conversation and you want your partner to know that it's something that's really important to you, I'd like to talk to you about something that's really important to me. Starting that way instead of saying so I see you didn't wash the dishes again or whatever. Hey, I want to talk to you about something that's really important to me. I want to talk about our, joined efforts in keeping the house clean or whatever. Another helpful phrase, I know there's a good reason why you do everything that you do. But when blank happens, this is my experience. So you're not demonizing the person. You're recognizing that they probably have a line of logic in their head that you're just not aware of. But when this happens, this is my experience. So keeping it in your experience rather than pointing the finger and saying you. So this is one way that you can be sharing what's on your heart, but doing it in a way that is not demonizing or not blaming in any way on your partner. Another one is, I know you really love me, but when blank happens, I don't feel loved. I feel blank. And fill in the blank. How do you feel when blank happens? And so it's almost like you're cushioning it. So get what's on your heart out, but cushion it with hey, I know you probably didn't mean this. But when you said this earlier, man, it just freaking gutted me.
Yeah.
So it's giving them the benefit of the doubt almost in your communication.
Yeah.
So those are just some tips. Of course, I have more thoughts, but I'll stop there and let you speak.
Yeah. No, some things that come up for me is, the container that we call the check-in is a helpful tool, especially as you're just getting started with conscious communicating with your significant other. episode 113 breaks down how that format works. And then, look into John Wineland, who's a fantastic teacher, Mark Groves, who's an incredible teacher for how to consciously relate and communicate to your significant other. And then my kind of twist on this is those are really helpful tools for like getting off the ground. Mm-hmm. When you get into it, we've been doing this show for 4.5 years, and we've got multiple, skill sets as it pertains to consciously communicating. But at this point, for me, if I hear like overly fluffy spiritual relationship consciousness language, I kind of feel like, hold on, you're just reciting something. I want to hear your actual authentic thoughts.
Yeah.
And so sometimes for me, it's like, just be yourself, uncharged, and get to the point. And so like that can look as simple as, babe, I love the hell out of you. I don't see myself doing anything except continuing to curate a beautiful life with you. Because of that, and because of how strongly I feel about wanting to thrive in our relationship and be abundant and have wellness, I am feeling that support from you should look like this or can look like this, and that would be very helpful to me. Mm-hmm. Instead of like getting a little too fluffy and woo. So that's kind of one thing that comes up. I think a conversation with your partner outside of the tough communication space is to lay some ground rules for how you have charged conversations. What's very easy when you're having a charged conversation is to start to distract the point of the conversation with other things that are going on in your life that have nothing to do with the conversation at hand. So bringing up past issues, bringing up scorekeeping, like, well, I know you're telling me about this thing right now, but here's what you didn't do for me a month ago. Or, well, you say that I'm not listening to you when you're talking, but you never listen to me when I talk. Instead of actually receiving the feedback and actually engaging in how you can alchemize that one particular request, those things need to be like rules that you don't, that you both commit to in a sober state where you're not charged, so that when it happens, you can both just say, hey, we're starting to bring things into this conversation that actually don't have anything to do with it. And that kind of leads me into my next comment, which would just be thing behind the thing. What are you really trying to say? What's the archetype or the message that is running through the representation of this one particular problem that we're having? Like, it's so easy in charged conversation to hyper focus on the event that triggered the charged conversation, when that event was literally just kind of the last drop to spill the cup over. And so if you hyper focus on one drop, all you ever say is, it's just a drop. It's just a drop. What's your problem? And it's like, it's not about the drop. It's about the 50 drops that accumulated to spilling over this jar or whatever. And so thing behind the thing, what are you really trying to say, is an important framing that I think couples can use, and we surely use, so that we can have a little bit more understanding. It's easier to talk about respect and feeling loved than it is to talk about whether or not you're texting during dinner, whether or not you are, scraping your plate when you put your dish in the dishwasher, whatever. And so, I mean, those are the things that come up for me, and it looks a little bit different for everybody. The best thing that can support these types of conversations is just a commitment to participating in an elevated way of being. Conversations will never not have a charge when they are difficult, but what they can be is productive. And there's nothing, at least for me, that is more defeating than getting through a very emotional setting and not feeling like you have stepped into a higher way of being post that conversation. If it feels like it actually worsened, is where I think these, problematic conversations can really, kill a relationship.
Yeah. So she says, not getting defensive or taking things too personally. And I think this points back to the groundwork, laying the ground rules. And yeah, you can lay 10 ground rules till you're blue in the face or whatever. You can have this beautiful conversation. And then as soon as you have like a charge or one of you is pissed at the other person, sometimes those ground rules can feel like they almost like go out the window. So it's like, for some couples, we don't necessarily do this, but I know it works for some couples. If you notice that like you're getting worked up or your partner's getting worked up, you can simply say, I really want this conversation to be productive, and I can tell that it is not right now. I'm getting worked up, or I can see that like we are getting worked up together. I'm going to take a walk around the block. I'm going to take some breaths, and then I'm going to come back in 10 minutes, and I would like to continue the conversation because I want to get to a point that feels really good, where we both walk away from this feeling like it was productive. So we don't really do that, but I know that it can be helpful if you notice that people are being defensive or you're being defensive, whatever, then take the initiative. It's not like, let's take a fucking break, God. It's not that. It's like, I'm noticing that like I'm getting worked up and I really want this to be productive. So it's like, you kind of, in all of these cases, you really do have to put your pride aside. You have to put your desire to be right aside and know that the way that you communicate, hopefully it's calmly and with some breath in there, can make or break things, and that it's really serving a higher purpose of creating a beautiful relationship, not winning the argument.
Yeah. Yep. Super good.
All right. I hope that helped, Sarah.
Thanks, everybody, for your questions. You can continue to submit them to us if you're signed up to our newsletter, The Medicine Drop, that drops every Thursday. We are often taking questions and feedback for the show on that space. You can also always reach out to us on Instagram, Mimi_the medicine, Chase _ no, what's my handle? You can look up Chase Ramey.
Chase Ramey.
The _ Chasen_1.
Yeah.
And the way we finish out this show is we have a crazy story. And in this case today, not just a crazy relationship story, but we've got a handful of funny first date anecdotes. And we'll read these aloud, and we kind of wrap the show with what we say is our moral of the story.
So I kind of want to read if it's coming from I think this first one's coming from a woman.
Yeah, okay. That
so I can read it and then you can read them.
Go for it.
So we can alternate a little bit here. All right. These, if you guys out there have ever had like a horrible first date, hearing these, I think will make you feel a little bit better. All right. Number 1, he took it out. And I don't mean this in a funny, unexpected Seinfeld kind of way, although I suppose it is that. I mean, he leaned across the table and whispered, "I'm out." I said, "Excuse me?" For some reason, my first thought was out of the closet. He said, "Out, under the table. Look under the table." And like an idiot, I looked. Then he said, "That's what you do to me." I said, "This is what you do to me." And I left. I'm a total people pleaser, so to this day, I'm very proud of myself for walking away in the middle of dinner.
Extremely tough stuff, my guy.
So insane.
All right, number 2, we'll rapid fire these. I went on a date with a woman from the office, thought we had good chemistry and would get along well. She couldn't find her phone at the date, so I tried calling it, and someone from the restaurant answered. I went back in to get the phone for her, and the waiter showed me that I was saved in her contacts as, quote, free food. Ouch, my guy.
Dude girl was just hitting him up for free food.
Tough
stuff. Number 3. He asked me how big my baby was and if I birthed him vaginally or had a C-section. His explanation was that he'd never slept with a mom before, and he had heard that a baby can stretch out a vagina. I excused myself to go to the bathroom and promptly left the restaurant.
Unfortunately, I know a couple guys who would actually participate in that kind of language.
They might not say it out loud to the person on the date, but they definitely would be like thinking like, am I even going to feel anything?
Right.
The next one is a woman too, I guess. So he chewed on my hair while we were watching a movie in the theater. I will never forget the feeling of someone tugging on my hair, then going to flick it back and feeling it be soaked. That is so gross.
Big hair guy.
big hair fetish.
And then last one, this is from the perspective of a male, I believe. And this one is crazy. This is back before catfishing was a thing. Lily was a supposed 22-year-old woman, with me being a 24-year-old guy at the time, and used to being surrounded by quirky people. So her online messages really never threw me off or had any major red flags. I drove by her place to pick her up at night, so I never saw her until she was actually in my car. First, Lily informed me she preferred to be called by her demon name, Lilith. Lilith was 50% demon, 40% vampire, 5% werewolf, 3% human, and 2% other. She was also super tiny, like under 100 pounds. And instead of being 22, she just had her birthday last week and she turned 17. Also was super pregnant, 7 months along, which made her belly even bigger than the rest of her body. Oh, and this was child number 3.
Tough stuff, Lilith. I wonder how the rest of the date went.
Brutal. If dude guy didn't just like immediately ask her to exit the vehicle, I am concerned for his rationale. Moral of the story for you.
Moral of the story on this one, never look under the table.
Yeah.
And 2, always FaceTime before you meet someone for a date. Just like make sure that they are who they say they are. Just FaceTime.
Moral of the story for me, it's 2024, people. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, you can get background checks for like $5. It is in your best interest to do a little stalking. It's not even stalking at this point.
No.
It's a little responsibility as it pertains to the cesspool that is the online dating space. So do yourself a favor, spend 10 minutes. Ask your crazy friend who is way too obsessed about your dating life to do a little research for you.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence before you jump into a online meetup experience.
Yeah, totally. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, enjoyed this conversation. We would still love to hear your feedback. This is obviously a new-ish type of format for us, and it's really fun for us. And so we would love to know. We've gotten some really good feedback from people saying that they really like it. So yeah, would love to hear from you. You can always share the episode on your social media. You guys know the drill. And like Chase said earlier, Nikki Cage. As Nikki Cage said earlier, if you have a question that you want to submit to us, you can send it to themedicinepodcast@gmail.com. At medicine, remember, no E on the end. themedicinepodcast@gmail. And if you want it anonymous, just let us know.
And you can also comment on YouTube. Best way to engage with us about a particular episode is to jump onto YouTube, subscribe. That would be much appreciated. And leave us a comment. We will reply to any comment on YouTube.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you're at in your day. And thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you next time. Go spread some light. Okay.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.